All right, it's close enough to 2, so I think we can begin. First, I'm working with a new computer, so can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, so this is Circuits 1. Over the summer, we have a combination of section V84 and O84 all together in one large group. I'm Dr. Hartman. I'm the program chair for electrical engineering and teach circuits practically every quarter, but not quite every single quarter. So you're in relatively good hands. Um, my office, for those of you that are on or around campus, is Nethkin Hall, room 211. My office hours, so when I physically intend to be in my office, again, not expecting a whole lot of traffic here, will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 12 to 1:45. I'll also be around a computer practically all day, every day. So if you guys need to reach me outside of those office hours, please feel free to email me and we can either solve your problem via email or we can create a Zoom and we can talk over Zoom. Whatever floats your boat works with me. My email address is just my last name at latech.edu. And I have provided my personal cell phone number instead of my office number for you guys. So if you need to reach out to ask a question or whatever, you're welcome to do so. Please, for the love of God, do not abuse that. I'm an old man. I go to sleep at like 8 o'clock at night so I can wake up between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. If you text me after 8 to wake me up, I will text you when I wake up to wake you up. All right. Let's see. Emergency class disruption policy. Realistically, this means nothing because the class is already being administered over Canvas and Zoom. So if something were to happen, it will still be administered over Canvas and Zoom. Let's see. Course objectives. Effectively, by the end of this quarter, you guys are going to know a whole heck of a lot about circuits. Both DC circuits, AC circuits, and circuits that are undergoing a change, which is what we commonly call transient analysis. The textbook for this class is officially Engineering Circuit Analysis 10th edition by Height, Kemmerly, Phillips, and Durbin. While this is an okay book, it's not one that I actually use. In fact, I tend to recommend a different one. Let me show you guys what I prefer. So let me move this thing out of the way. If you Google CADULABY, the first link that shows up is, this page is looking weirder than usual. Let me try refreshing it. Well, this page usually brings you to something more colorful. I'm not sure what exactly is going on right now, but there's a textbook called Circuit Analysis and Design by Fawaz Ulabi, Michael Maharbaz, and Cynthia First that is available completely for free to anybody who's interested in looking at it. If you want a print copy of the book, I believe it costs $75. It is, in my opinion, a very good circuit analysis textbook. And one of the principal reasons that I like it so much is because it is completely free to students. So instead of finding an illegal copy of a textbook online, these people are literally just giving theirs away. So whenever their website gets fixed, download a copy if you want. And if the website doesn't get fixed in a timely fashion, I may just put a digital copy of it up available on our course website anyway. All right, let me circle back around to the syllabus. So let's see. Disability disclosure. So any student that is needing testing or classroom accommodations needs to let me know as soon as possible. Realistically, the only thing that this will impact is the amount of time that you are given to take an exam. Like I said, just let me know as soon as possible and we'll work something out. I'll talk a little bit more about exams when we get to that portion of the syllabus. The class attendance policy is listed below. This is the official policy of the university. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever for an online class, especially one where I am accommodating students who are participating in internships and all of that kind of good stuff. So as far as I am concerned, since I'm recording all of my lectures and all of that kind of good stuff, there is no reason to require students to virtually attend these lectures at all. Everything will be available on Canvas as well as my crappy YouTube channel. Generally speaking, since this class is supposed to end at 4 and it takes roughly an hour to an hour and a half before I get the email telling me that Zoom has done whatever it needs to do to allow me to start editing the video recording, I'm probably not going to get the videos uploaded until very early the following morning. So for instance, I would expect to have the video that's being recorded right now up around 6 a.m., if not earlier, tomorrow morning. But anyway, so there's nothing that is requiring you to physically, or I guess virtually, show up to class or anything like that. If you have an internship or a job or whatever that you're taking time away from for this class, it's really no reason to do that. You can just watch the videos, all of that kind of good stuff. If for whatever reason you want to get slightly ahead in the class, if that is your prerogative, I have recorded all of my videos, or excuse me, all of my times that I've taught this class over the last several years, since roughly spring 2020. All of those are available on my YouTube channel. So if you want to get ahead for things, or if you know for sure that you have a trip or something that's going to prevent you from keeping up, you can get ahead by watching those older videos and then still participate in the homeworks and class assignments and all of that kind of stuff in that way. All right. Academic honor code. This is just a boilerplate thing. Being a student of higher standards, you pledge to embody the principles of academic integrity. Information regarding academic misconduct is available on the university's website. Behavior, I guess, don't be disruptive. Anything else is, I don't know, there's not a lot of other opportunities for things. Cheating will not be tolerated. That's a pretty boilerplate thing. So speaking of that, and I'll talk about this when we get to exams as well, all of your exams in this course, which would be the things where it would be the easiest opportunity to cheat, I guess, will be handled using the Respondus Lockdown browser. The Respondus Lockdown browser is a web tool that records you while you take your exam, which means having a working webcam is 100% required for you to participate in this class. So if you do not have a working webcam, I don't particularly care if it's integrated into your computer or if it's an external device, you will absolutely need to get one and get it all sorted out prior to our first test. By the way, if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, you can ask them while we're talking about it, or you can wait till the end. It's okay, either way by me. All right, homework stuff. So we're going to use web work in this class. There will be web work problems posted at the end of practically every lecture except for this one. You will be granted unlimited number of attempts per problem, and the specific due date for each homework assignment will be listed on web work. So what I intend to do once I get the web work set up is, let's say that we have a homework assignment that is associated with the material that we're going to be covering on Friday. That homework assignment will be due the day after the next class meeting. So that would be, it will be due on Tuesday at midnight for full credit. If you complete it by Wednesday at midnight, you will receive half credit, and anything beyond Wednesday, you will receive 0 credit. As far as I'm concerned, this policy is set in stone. Because I want to encourage all of you to actually keep up on your assignments. It is very easy to get left behind and be lost in this class. So I have a fairly aggressive homework policy that I have every intention of sticking to. Okay. As I mentioned previously, I have lecture videos from several years back, all available on my YouTube channel. So if you know for a fact that you are going to be out of town when a homework set or something like that is due, there is nothing at all preventing you from trying to get it knocked out early. I will have all of the homework sets open um, as soon as I get that set up, which will probably be tomorrow or Friday. So homework number 1 through number 24 will all be available effectively starting at the beginning of class, and they will only close the day after the following class meeting of when that material is covered. If you have to use my YouTube channel because you're going to be headed out of town or anything, the topics that are covered have not changed. So if you know that, let's say, class meeting number 7 is devoted to nodal analysis, if you search my YouTube channel for ENGR 221 class meeting number 7, it's almost 100% guaranteed that that's going to be on nodal analysis, and you'll have 4 or 5 different versions of me explaining that topic. So there's really no excuse for you to not be able to do your homework on time, if not early. Let's see, in-class assignments. So after each lecture, a brief problem set is going to be, I say distributed, they're all already available on Canvas. We are going to work them together as a class. So these are going to entail some of the example problems that I intend to work throughout the duration of each lecture. I'm asking you to submit them digitally prior to the next class meeting. So let me get out of this really quickly so I can show you guys something. So if we go over to our course's Canvas page, you can already see that the in-class assignments, all 24 of them, are already available to all of you students. The online submission portals have also all been set up. If we look at this one right here, and I know it may look slightly different for you guys because you have a student view as opposed to my teacher view. You can see that this one is due on June the 10th at 2 p.m. So this in-class assignment is related to the material that we're going to be covering on Friday, which is why it's due the following Monday at 2 p.m., which is the beginning of the next class meeting. And it will turn off at 2:05 p.m. on that Monday. So effectively, you should be turning in your in-class assignments immediately after class, since we're going to be working on them together. You will not be able to turn them in after 5 minutes into the following class meeting, meaning if you don't get it turned in by that time, you take a 0. I'm being very upfront about this policy and warning you about it now so that I don't get a bunch of emails, this, that, and the other. You're expected to be able to manage your time and turn stuff in a timely fashion. So just trying to make everybody aware of that. All right, let's see. Exams. So as I said previously, we are going to be using the Respondus lockdown browser to handle exams in this class. That means that you guys don't have to go and find a proctor or anything like that. Everything will be handled online. You are required to submit a digital copy of your work within 1 hour of completing your test, or you will receive a 0 on your exam. So let's talk about this just a little bit here, okay? One of the most common questions I get via email is how exams are going to work in this class. So if we jump slightly ahead and we look at the tentative course schedule, we can see that our first exam is scheduled for Friday, June 28th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have multiple versions of the exam made. So there will be a version of the exam that you could actually take on Wednesday, June 26th, immediately after the review session. So let's say from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. There will be two versions that you could take on Thursday afternoon. So let's say from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And there will be two versions of the exam that you could take on Friday, say from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and then 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I give you several different options for when you take your test. And by the way, I might change those 5 p.m. start times to 6 p.m. just to accommodate people having time to get somewhere to take their test after work or something like that. But anyway, I give you guys plenty of different options to take your exams to work with your, internship, job schedules, all of that kind of good stuff. I firmly believe that 5 different options for when you take your test should be plenty enough for everyone to be able to find one that suits their schedule. But if for whatever crazy reason that somehow doesn't work out, please let me know and we'll handle things on a case by case basis. You may have noticed that all of the exam windows that I mentioned are 3 hours long. It is not my intention or expectation for any of these exams to actually cause the students to actually take 3 hours. These exams are going to be designed to be incredibly similar to previous exams that have been offered in in-person settings for Engineering 221. So the expectation is they are to be completed in 2 hours. However, because you don't have a paper copy of the test in front of you and will therefore be required to draw the circuits out yourself and all of that kind of good stuff, I give you plenty of extra time to be able to do that. Okay, so that's why I'm giving you a 3-hour window in order to complete your test, just so that you have plenty of time to write down the circuits, perform your analysis, all that kind of good stuff. I think that's all I have to say about tests, unless anybody has any questions. All right. Scrolling back up here. You can only use FE approved calculators for your tests. So those are the TI-30X, which I would strongly encourage anyone not to use. That's a terrible calculator. The TI-36X, that is a very good calculator. The Casio 115 is a very good calculator. The Casio 991 is a very good calculator. And I believe the HP 33S is also allowed. HP calculators confuse the bejesus out of me. So if that's your cup of tea, that's great. I have no idea how to use them. All right. The weighting of the grades is as follows. Homeworks will count for 20% of your grade, so it is very important that you actually do them. The in-class assignments, which are this class's version of a participation grade, it's how I'm going to be taking roll and all of that kind of good stuff, are 5%. And then each of the 3 exams are worth 30%. And the exam that you make the lowest score on, its weight will be reduced down to 15%. So effectively, you can do poorly on one test and still come out with an okay to good grade in the class. However, if you do very poorly on 2 tests, you should probably drop. The grading scale used for this class is a traditional 10-point scale. So anything higher than a 90 is an A. An 89.99% to me is considered a B. So if you want to earn an A or a specific grade in this class, you need to make sure that you meet or exceed the actual threshold given here. I do not believe in rounding. If you want to earn an A, earn the A. I don't expect any of the contents of this syllabus to change. However, if I need to do so, I reserve the right to, as long as I let you guys know what's going on. Emergency notification system stuff, COVID-19 policy doesn't particularly matter right now since we're all attending this class virtually. Not sure how counseling services work over the summer, but the information is there. And then we have our tentative course schedule. This is very similar to what you would have experienced in an in-person meeting of this class. However, for whatever reason, the summer session is 31 class meetings long. And so that actually allows me to designate a review day for each of the tests. So on Wednesday, the 26th of June, Wednesday, the 17th of July, and it looks like Monday, the 12th of August, those class meetings will not be dedicated to covering any new material whatsoever. Those are days specifically designated to review material for the upcoming exams. For any of you guys who have taken me for circuits previously, you know that a review session that I lead effectively means you need to come prepared with questions that you want to have answered. If nobody asks any questions, the review session is over. So just giving you a heads up about what the review session is going to be all about. And then we already talked about the test. All right, so before we jump into today's lecture topic, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the information provided on the syllabus?
Dr. Hartman, I had a question about the Respondus browser.
Sure.
So if our laptop screen is kind of small and we want to use a second monitor that's attached to the laptop, can we use that with the browser, or is that not allowed?
I have never been asked that question, so I'm not entirely sure. So what the Respondus lockdown browser does is it literally locks down your web browser so that you cannot access external websites and all of that kind of good stuff. It also has a feature that uses your webcam to record you while you are taking the test, and it uses AI to flag behavior that it thinks is questionable. So like spending a lot of time looking away, like looking to the left or looking to the right, like you were trying to access, I don't know, a piece of paper with a cheat sheet or something that was far away. But I have no idea if it will throw up any red flags with regards to having a second monitor. So what I generally do, because most students don't use the Respondus lockdown browser except during summer sessions like this, is I try to put up a kind of a practice session with the browser up several days before the first test. So you should be able to kind of mess around with it there and see if it allows you to use that second monitor. Unfortunately, that's the best answer that I can provide right now.
I think as long as you just don't do the extend screen, just have it copy the same screen, I think you should be fine.
Thank you for that, Haley.
Fair enough.
Any other questions regarding the syllabus or any of its contents? All right. So, oh goodness, let me see what's going on in the chat here.
I actually kind of have an additional question branching off his last question.
Sure.
What will happen? What will happen if it suspects anything suspicious going on?
So it flags that portion of the video and it makes me go look at it to see whether I think anything was actually going on.
All right.
So all it does is record things and then make recommendations to me of instances where it thinks that cheating may have occurred.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. So it's not going to use computer vision to say you arbitrarily fail a class or anything like that. It still requires my input. All right. Give me just a moment to turn my computer out of computer mode and into tablet mode. Hide that. Sorry. There we go. All right. Hopefully everybody currently sees a blank sheet of engineering paper. So for today's class, we are going to be talking about basic circuits terminology. And the reason why we are dedicating a day to this, it's kind of a review of some of the material that you guys covered in your Engineering 120 series, because I know for some of you, it's been quite a while since you took that class. But another reason is to kind of just make sure that we're all on the same page when we're talking about the different things that make up circuits. Okay. So we are going to start by talking about networks, nodes, and connections. So the first thing that I want to introduce is what I'm going to call a generic circuit element. Okay. So I'm going to draw a simple box here, and I'm going to call this circuit element A. And this circuit element A could represent any different type of circuit element that we might see. So could be potentially an operational amplifier, a resistor, a diode, a transistor, literally anything. Okay. Now I'm going to go a little bit further here, and I'm going to specify that element A is a two-terminal element. So I'm going to put terminals here. So one on the top, one on the bottom. This could just as easily have been one on the left and one on the right. And these terminals represent a way that we can connect this element to other circuit elements in a system. Okay. So if I add another circuit element, let's call it element B here, I'll have a terminal on the left and then a terminal on the right. And this portion right here represents the interconnection of these two elements. And you may often see me not explicitly put that little circle there and simply connect them like so. So this would still be two terminal elements that are connected together. Well, whenever two or more circuit elements are connected together, they form a network. So I'm going to write that down as a definition. Sorry. And we will define a network as an interconnection between two or more circuit elements. Okay. The point of interconnection between the circuit elements, so the little bit that I have circled there in orange, is what we're going to call a node. By the way, if at any point my handwriting starts getting too sloppy, please let me know and I will happily rewrite or clarify things. Okay. All right. So if we were to connect more circuit elements to our network, we would wind up just creating more nodes in our system. So let's say that we had a circuit element C here, like so, and it's going to be connected to element B on top and element A on bottom. And then let's put an element D here over to the right, which is connected to element C on C and B on top and C and A on bottom, like so. So whenever we have multiple circuit elements like this, and therefore multiple nodes, it can often be very helpful in our analysis to identify nodes. And I like to do that by using different colors where all points along the connected terminals are treated as a single node. So let me illustrate what I mean by this. So we're going to start with the connection between elements A and B. So I would treat this connection right here, which I've just outlined in red, as a single node. We might have this connection here between elements B, C, and D as a single node. And then lastly, we would have this node on the bottom, describing how A, C, and D are connected. So in this way, we can very easily see that we have 1, 2, 3 nodes in this network. As we get into more advanced topics in this class, we will be dealing with circuits that have several more than 3 nodes, and some of our analysis techniques require us to be able to accurately and quickly identify nodes. So if you guys have any questions about nodes, how to identify them, etc., please let me know. Okay. All right, so if we look at circuit elements A and B, we can see that there is a single node of interconnection between them with no branching paths. So what I mean by branching paths, we need to look at, say, node 2 that I've highlighted in light blue, right? So elements B and C are connected together, but there is a branching path that is also connected to element D. So the red node is distinctly different than the light blue node in the top right or the bottom blue node, right? Because it doesn't contain any of these branching paths. Whenever we have a connection like this, where it's just between exactly 2 circuit elements with no additional branching paths, we call this a series connection. Okay. So a series connection is a connection between 2 elements with no branching paths. Now, this is our definition for a series connection today. Come next Monday, when we discuss Kirchhoff's laws, we will update our definition for a series connection as well as a parallel connection to include our extended knowledge of how circuits behave. But for right now, a series connection is simply a connection between 2 elements with no branching paths. So now let's look at how circuit elements C and D are connected, okay? So we can see that the top terminals of element C are connected to the same node in light blue, which I've identified as node 2, and the bottom terminals of element C and D are connected together at the dark blue node, which I've labeled as node 3. So we're going to call this type of a connection a parallel connection. So a parallel connection is a connection between two or more circuit elements where all terminals are shared. So you guys should have been exposed to series connected elements and parallel connected elements in your prior classes. How would you describe how elements B and C are connected to each other? Anybody care to venture a guess?
Be parallel or series, technically.
So technically, the answer is neither. So let's talk about that really quickly, okay? So in order for it to be a series connection between elements B and C, there cannot be a branching path. And as I discussed previously, there is a branching path here that's leading off towards element D. So the existence of this branching path means that those two elements are not in series. In order for the elements to be connected in parallel, they have to share both sets of terminals, since these are two terminal devices, right? So we can see right here that they share these terminals here, which I've identified in light blue. However, element B is connected to the red node on the other side, while element C is connected to the dark blue node on the other side. Since they aren't connected to the same colors on both sides, they can't be in parallel either. So this is something that I don't think the Engineering 120 series does a good enough job of explaining. Not all elements are connected in series or parallel. In fact, the overwhelming majority of elements aren't connected in either one of those two simple ways. That's perfectly okay. All right. We are going to develop techniques that will allow us to simplify circuits and combine elements to make things look like they're connected in series or look like they're connected in parallel, because that will typically make the analysis easier, but we're not there just yet. So I gave you guys a little bit of a trick question, but that's okay. I just want to reinforce the fact that it doesn't have to be a series or parallel connection. There's nothing wrong with it just being connected. All right, so let's look at an example network here. And I'm going to go back to that previous screen here in a moment once we start the lecture material again. So I'm going to draw a network, and we are together going to answer a few questions about it. So let's start with something like this. So I have some element A. Here I have an element B. This is going to be element D. Down here on the bottom, I will have an element C, excuse me. Here's an element E. Diagonally across like so, I'm going to put an element F. Here will be an element G. And then finally over here on the right-hand side, I will have an element H. So I want us to answer the following questions. So the first question that I want us to answer is, excuse me, how many nodes does this network contain? So I'm going to give you guys a moment to think about it, and then we'll sort it out. And if anybody knows, please tell me.
Five.
5. I agree with that. Okay. So let's take a moment here and identify those 5 nodes. So we have one here in the top left-hand corner that's connecting nodes A and B. We have one here in the bottom left-hand corner that's connecting nodes A and C. We have one here kind of on the top middle connecting elements B, D, and E. We have one here on the bottom right that's connecting elements C, D, F, G, and H. All of those are connected to a single node. And then we have one over here on the top right that is connecting elements E, F, G, and H. So if I'm counting correctly, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes. So great job. Our network contains 5 nodes. The next question that I want us to answer is, which of the elements are connected in series? If anybody wants to volunteer a guess, I would appreciate it.
A and B.
So A and B would absolutely be considered a series connection, right? So let's write that down. So A and B, node 1. Are there any other series connected elements?
A and
A and
C.
C.
A and C, absolutely right. Which we called node 2. Are there any other series connected elements?
Would you group elements together or no?
So we're not there just yet because we don't know what type of elements these are, right? So there are restrictions as to how we can combine things depending on if we have resistors, capacitors, inductors, voltage sources, current sources, and all of that kind of stuff. With our generic case like this, because we don't know what any of them actually are, we can't really lump things together just yet. So as far as we are concerned, we are finished with our series connections. It's just A and B and just A and C. As we learn a little bit more, particularly about Kirchhoff's current law, we'll get to a point where we would consider elements A, B, and C all in series, but we're not there just yet. But some of you may have thought about that as well. All right, so the question that I want us to answer with regards to this network is, which of the elements are connected in parallel? Again, I'm more than happy to have you guys participate and answer these questions.
F, G, and H.
F, G, and H. Absolutely. So F, G, and H, because they all share node 4 and node 5. Are there any other parallel connections? All
Looks
right.
like D and
sorry.
E. D and E.
So
And then-
D and E share node 3, but
Yeah.
the other side of E is connected to 5, and the other side of D is connected to 4. So unfortunately, D and E do not constitute a parallel connection. So one of the reasons that I like to use colors like this is because we can very easily see that, hey, if they have the same color on both sides, then that means that they're in parallel. So F, G, and H all have pink on top and purple on bottom. So that's why we can say they're all in parallel. But E and D have blue on one side, but E is pink and D is purple on the other side. And since those aren't the same color, they're not in parallel. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, that makes sense.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we have a good grasp of series and parallel connections as well as identifying nodes. So let's go back to our previous network and let's talk about circuits, loops, and meshes. Oops. There we go. So I'm going to redraw our network from above. Okay. So here is my element A. Here's element B. And here is element C. And finally, we're going to have element D over here on the right. Okay. So I have the same 4 circuit elements as previous, and they are connected in the same way. So we're going to look at this network from a slightly different context now. Okay. So I would consider that this network is a circuit. And the reason why I am saying that is because I have defined a circuit to be any network that contains at least one closed path. So let's talk about what I mean by a closed path here really quickly. Okay. So if we were to start down here at the bottom left-hand corner, okay, so we are effectively attaching ourselves to this node. If we were to go up through element A, across through element B, down through element C, and then back across through that line on the bottom, we have formed a closed path in this circuit. Okay, I'm going to label this with a 1. we could do something similar, starting at C. We could go up through C, across to the right, down through D, and back across like so. So that would be a second closed path. Another closed path that we could form would be starting from the bottom left-hand corner again. So at the bottom of A, go up through it, across through B, keep on going, down across D, and then back to where we started from along the bottom. And that would be a third closed path. So since we have 3 different closed paths, this is most definitely a circuit, since we only need 1 closed path in order to treat a network as a circuit, okay? So each of those closed paths are what are commonly referred to as a loop. And so we will formally define a loop as any closed combination of circuit elements and nodes. So as long as we can start at some point and get back to that same point without immediately coming back through the exact same element, we have a loop, okay? Our last thing that we're going to talk about in this little section is what's called a mesh, okay? So being able to correctly identify a mesh is very important in a circuit analysis technique that's called mesh analysis. So by definition, a mesh is simply any loop in a circuit which does not enclose a smaller loop. So of the 3 loops that I have identified for you guys, which do you think are meshes?
1 and 2.
Exactly right. So mesh 1 is as small of a loop as we can make. Mesh 2 is as small of a loop as we can make. Loop 3 is not considered a mesh because it contains or encloses loops 1 and 2. Absolutely right. So effectively, meshes are incredibly easy to identify because it's just the smallest closed path. So they're always pretty obvious. It's the larger loops that are typically a little bit harder to see. So let's work another example problem. And this time we're going to look at things in contexts of loops and meshes, okay? So here I have some element A. Here's B. Diagonally across, we'll have C. Here's element D. E. F. G. And H. So I hope that we can all very easily see that this network constitutes a circuit because it has multiple closed paths. So the first thing that I want to know with regards to this circuit is, I'm going to do it again, how many meshes goodness does this circuit contain? So anyone care to venture a guess?
Is it 4?
It is indeed 4. So let's go ahead and identify them really quickly, right? So we have this triangular mesh. So let's call it 1. We have this triangular mesh, call it 2. A triangular mesh here, 3. And a triangular mesh here, which we'll call 4. All right. So we have 4 meshes. So now let's figure out how many loops does this circuit contain? And we could blindly guess here, but I think there's probably an easier approach to sort this out. Okay, so we're going to subdivide things into ways that we can find out this number much easier. So first, I want us to determine how many single loop meshes there are. Or sorry, single mesh loops. Sorry about that. So that's literally the question that we just answered a moment ago. There are 4 loops that comprise just a single mesh, and we've already identified those. How many 2 mesh loops do you think there will be? So this would be a loop that is composed, so as a combination of exactly 2 meshes.
Two.
So I believe that there are
Is it
3.
3?
Yeah, so let's look at them and see if we can sort this out, right? So let me use this light pink color. I'm going to wind up erasing these in a moment because it's going to get too busy. But one example of a 2 mesh loop would be this guy right here that combines meshes 1 and 2. So that's one 2 mesh loop. We also have this guy over here that combines meshes 3 and 4. But there is a third one that combines meshes 2 and 3 that might not have been as obvious as the other 2. So that's why I say that there are 3 2 mesh loops. There are no other 2 mesh loops that we could form, because if we tried to, let me erase these and show you what I mean here. Let's say that we tried to combine meshes 1 and 3. So that would look something like this. But this is actually an example of a 3 mesh loop, because there's no way for me to combine meshes 1 and 3 without also including mesh 2, right? So with that in mind, how many 3 mesh loops do you guys think there are?
2.
2, exactly right. So the one I've drawn here containing 1, 2, and 3. And if we effectively flipped that kind of trapezoidal thing over, we could have a similar shaped loop that contains meshes 2, 3, and 4. So there are definitely just 2 3-mesh loops. Let me go ahead and circle the other one just in case. So that would be this combination right here. And then lastly, how many 4-mesh loops are there?
1.
Just the one, right? So that would be around the outside perimeter. Like so. So if we add all of these together, I believe that makes 10 total loops that this circuit contains. All right, so that is really all that I wanted to talk about today. We have reviewed the concepts of series connection, parallel connection. We've talked about what nodes are and how to identify them, what meshes are and how to identify them. So we've laid a pretty reasonable foundation for things. In our next lecture, which will be on Friday, we are going to formally talk about the basic electrical quantities that we are going to be dealing with in this class. So we're going to talk about voltages, currents, power, and energy, and give formal definitions for all of those things, as well as do a little bit of math and hit you guys with some equations. All right, so unless anybody has any questions, which I would be happy to answer, I will see you guys on Friday.
Dr. Hartman,
Yes.
I had one question about the syllabus or the grading part of it.
Sure.
When that one test gets dropped to 15%, is there anything to make up for that 15%, or is it just going to be out of 85% for our total?
So let's look back at the syllabus, and I may have explained it poorly. Give me just a moment to restore my computer to computer mode. Let's see. So you were specifically asking about the policy here. All right. So if we add all of these up at present, 20 plus 5 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 is actually
Yeah.
equal to 100.
Yeah, I just can't add. So that makes sense.
No problem. Yeah, so reducing your lowest exam score down to 15% actually makes the class out of a nice even 100%.
Yeah, I just can't add. I didn't look at that.
Yep, not a problem.
All right, appreciate it.
No problem.
Dr. Hartman,
Yes.
when you say upload a digital copy for like the exams and homework, are you talking about we need to scan our work like after we draw it all out and upload that, or actually just turning in the test off of lockdown browser?
So I mean, making a scan of your work so that you can turn
Okay.
it. Yeah. For the homeworks, I'm not going to require that. The homework is entirely
Well, for the
handled by-
class assignments.
Yeah, so for the in-class assignments, exactly right. So you will just scan it. I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but there is an app that you can download for your phone that's completely free. It's called a cam scanner. I'm sure
Yes,
there
sir.
are others. Yeah. I don't know that I mentioned this explicitly, so it's good that you brought it up. I want everything to be submitted in PDF format. So I have all of those submission portals set to reject any file that isn't in a PDF format. So you simply take a picture of it on your phone or whatever, convert it to PDF and upload it, and you're good to go. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
Yes, sir. And you don't need us to rewrite the questions, do you?
No, sir.
All right.
I would appreciate it if you put like the number of the problem or something like that, particularly for the test. So I have some idea about, which work corresponds to which problem.
Yes,
I
sir.
also understand that not every problem is going to require you to actually write things out and solve for stuff. So I just want you to show me effectively what you did. It helps me identify where you're struggling on things when you get questions wrong.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end this Zoom meeting. If you have any other questions that pop into your head, feel free to shoot me an email or ask them on Friday before class. Thank you, guys. See you later.